This episode of Archispeak is brought to you by ARCAT. And are you visiting Chicago for a green build in November? Check out the ARCAT booth 529. That's 529. This year's theme for Green Build Convention is Human by Nature, focusing on sustainable buildings and practices that are accessible to everyone.
Did you know that you can use ARCAT to find lead data on building products? ARCAT's powerful search engine can help you find the product information you need that meets your environmental standards.
Best of all, it's free. Check out arcat.com, that's ARCAT.com today, and visit us at the Green Build November 14th and 15th at booth 529. Again, that's 529 for more information.
Welcome to Archispeak, the podcast that talks about what it's like to work in the profession of architecture.
Welcome to episode 153 of the Archispeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan. So, last episode we had the architect fails, and one of the guys in our office came by and he was telling me about one that he had, and I thought it was just kind of funny. It's just funny, and so I wanted to share it with you guys. So he came over and he wrote down on a sticky note, he wrote the word node tail, and I'm like, node tail? He's like, and he goes, yeah. So I was doing some markups, I wrote some notes, and I get the drawings back, this circle around this handrail detail, and it's got a little leader, and it says node tail.
What the hell?
Now, write down node tail, and you'll see what note he actually left on it.
No detail?
No detail. He was asking them to draw a detail, and he put no detail. And he's just like, what is this? He goes, well, your note said node tail. He goes, no, it said no detail. Like, oh. I was just like, no, that's too good to not share. Just node tail. I was like,
okay,
wow,
I have
awesome.
one for you then. I don't know. I don't think I shared this one. So many years ago, when we put notes on the drawings, right? We put unless otherwise noted or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
On a note. Well, many years ago, the gentleman I was working for at the time, he would write unless noted otherwise. So if you abbreviate that, what does that spell?
Uno.
You know. Uno. So yes, exactly, Corbin.
I say you know all the time.
That is and so the contractor said, well, I just thought it said, you know. It's like, blah, 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 you know.
Yeah, you know.
No, unless other. So now I literally told this to one of our younger staff this past week. I told them this story. So anytime you're noting this, you always write UON, not UNO.
Yeah, please. And if you ever see that note, go ask.
Go ask, yeah.
And if you're asked, and if you're ever asked to draw a detail, and somebody puts on the drawings no detail, it's not node tail. It's draw the detail, note it up. You know.
Well, if I saw no detail, I'd be like, yeah, there's no detail.
Why, you're right. There is none.
There is none. Oh, you mean draw a detail.
Well, that should have just been the answer, right? It should have just been, you're right.
You're right.
Or, you know.
Or you know. No detail, you know.
All right.
Oh, those are good. Those are good fails.
Yeah. Thanks for keeping it going there. All right. So this last week we were at Construct, right? You guys were jet setting.
Wait, who was there? We were there?
You were there more than both of us combined.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, exactly. I was there for like 3 hours maybe.
And so
let's talk about jet setting. Sorry.
Basically,
yes.
I mean, I just thought we should do a little bit of a wrap up on that and
sure.
and talk about what it was like, because it didn't get recorded, right? So this is something that you had to be there. But maybe we can give everybody a little bit of a breakdown of what happened, and then maybe give them a look to what types of things Construct is doing, so that they might be interested in going in the future. So, what was your guys' experience?
Well, first, I'll say, I mean, we've been recording this show now, 6 years, and
It's UNO, right?
Yes, it's UNO.
Yes.
And we have a good flow and all of that other stuff. And I will say that it was a little, because it was our first time ever doing a live
like
recording,
a Q&A.
like a Q&A type thing. And no, it wasn't live recorded, but it felt that way. And though we still had a good flow, it was really weird having to like hand each other the microphone. And it was, and as you could tell, I wasn't quite sure, okay, when do I stop talking now? Microphone's in my hand. People are staring at me. Do I keep talking? I'm going to continue to ramble. I'm rambling. Why is everybody staring at me?
Give it to someone else now.
Why are you all staring? Oh, okay. All right, here, take the mic. So it's just like,
I think it's a little jarring too when you get a microphone, and it's very different than podcasting, because it's echoing throughout this large space. And that's not a normal situation for any one of us. I mean, if I'm ever giving a presentation, I'm not mic'd. I'm talking to a room. Granted, not a room that big, but it's very different. Or when I'm even lecturing, when I'm teaching, and I have 100 students, it's still not that big, and I'm still not mic'd, right? So I felt like that was the biggest kind of thing that I had to deal with immediately, was just hearing yourself amplified and just wondering, is that too loud? Can you hear me? There's just so many things that, because there's no prep ahead of time for that kind of thing.
No.
You're relying completely on however the tech set it up, and you have no clue, because they're not even there anymore to adjust it if it needs it. So hopefully that all came across okay. But what about the
fact when we got there, they had a little table set up.
Yeah, so
and this is nothing to do about Construct. I mean, this is the traditional way they would set up a panel. They'd have a little table, and then they had a lectern there at next to the table. And Cormac, you
let's set the stage. So we
go ahead.
So we walk in, and there's a little small stage. There's a podium for the moderator, which was Charisse, which was fantastic, and then there was a little table, which there weren't chairs up there yet, but I was assuming there were going to be 3 chairs with one little microphone there, and we would sit there, and it would be like a presser of some form where we're sitting there and answering questions. And it was
how'd
really
you feel
weird.
The game went?
Yeah. So, well, I gave it 110%, and coach put me in and kept running into the wall. But it was really weird. So, and we sat down for an interview for somebody else's podcast, and I was like, what do you think? Do you think they would get mad at us if we just took their setup off the stage and we put a couch and a chair up there and made it a little bit more comfortable? And I didn't even really get the words out of my mouth before you two were like pulling stuff off the stage. So, all right, well, I guess that's what we're doing.
We'll take a good idea and run with it any day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it was, and honestly, it was great. And I even shared some pictures with my wife, and she goes, "Yeah, that seems more natural for you guys." And I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, we've actually sat all on a couch together to record some things before, so that just felt natural to us."
And again, just to reiterate, that was not the Construct show's issue at all. It was just the tech department of the convention center and how they set it up.
Yeah,
right. So I think that the new setup was much nicer, and I think, like you said, it was more natural, and I think that it probably set a better tone for the audience as well. Like just the way that the interaction went with the audience, because one of the things that I thought was really neat about this particular, it was a young professionals luncheon. We were there to talk while everybody was eating lunch, and Charisse was moderating and asking questions that we had talked about ahead of time, and kind of figured out the kinds of things we wanted to to talk about. But then, it always goes off course during the actual thing, which is fine. We're all okay at handling that kind of a thing.
Right.
But at some point, people just start talking from the audience and interjecting and adding their commentary, and then people start going back and forth in the audience, and it felt totally natural. Like, it was not out of place at all. And so I really thought that was one of the most successful things about it. And I think just the way that I think that the swapping the furniture, as silly as it sounds, helped make that happen. Rather than making us feel like some type of authority figure at the front of the room with this barrier between us and the audience, by removing that, it made it much more conversational and much more what this podcast is about, and much more approachable, I think, for everybody to be a part of the conversation and not feel like they were an audience there to listen, but they were actually there to participate and contribute.
Yeah.
Yep.
Totally.
So it's I went to Construct's website here just to grab their URL, and on their website they have some sliding images, and one of the ones actually has us sitting there on the couch in a collage of several other shots from the show floor and such. But we're there. So that was cool. I agree that the setup was much more us, and I thought exactly. I think people wouldn't have felt as open to ask questions and have a dialogue back and forth if we weren't being presented in a much more casual way.
Yeah, it was fun. I felt like it's always hard to walk away from those knowing how the audience feels about it, but some people did come up after the talk and chatted with us, even some longtime listeners who, wanted to introduce themselves, and I felt like that really made me feel like it went over well. I mean, we did get some laughs in the room, which I thought was important to do. And I also felt like I walked away from there feeling like, oh, we might get invited back to do something like this again.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah, and
well, I had a great time.
What was also great about it is, when we were talking, and just kind of like our natural flow and stuff, and we're talking about our experiences, and people are like shaking their heads along with us. It's just, you can tell that they're connecting with what we're saying, and it's resonating with them because we're talking. I think the success of the show is that, all of the listeners tend to have shared experiences that we have. And you could tell that with the audience because they're like nodding along. Yep, I know that feeling. And it was great. It was good interaction. It was good. The questions that we got both from the moderator and from the audience were really good.
I was most surprised when I had prepared some other ideas ahead of time for the question about productivity tools. And I decided, I don't know, probably a day or two before we went, just based on kind of thinking through the questions a little further, that I was going to answer that question differently. And because I wanted to do something that I thought would kind of challenge the audience. Right. And so when Charisse asked, what is your favorite productivity tool? Because I think, that's something that she's really interested in. And I think a lot of people are interested in what tools people use to get things done. And my answer is almost an antithetical answer, right? I said YouTube. And I was expecting, there was quite a range of ages in the audience, even though it was, quote unquote, a young professionals luncheon. There was definitely, I don't know, four different generations in the room, probably.
Oh,
maybe three.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't know how that was going to go over. And so obviously I did explain what I was thinking when I said that. It wasn't just like a one-word answer, but just thinking about how the landscape has changed when it comes to how people learn and when they can learn and how fast they can learn. And there's this resource out there. And I don't think it really matters that it's strictly the brand name YouTube, right? There's lots and lots and lots of places you can learn online. But just as kind of a shock to the system, when somebody says, what's your favorite productivity tool? A lot of people would assume that that's a time wasting tool, right?
Right.
It's not a tool that you use to be productive, right? But I think that one of the biggest problems that our profession has is that people don't feel like they have permission to learn at work. right? Everybody already has to know how to do everything.
Which is
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, which is funny, though, because, I mean, I liken, and it took me a while to come around to this feeling, but I liken YouTube and the Google searches as the same thing as when I was flipping through Sweet's catalogs or flipping through architectural graphic standards. I needed to learn. I'd never drawn something like that before, so I needed to draw something, and I needed to find some examples. So what did I do? I didn't have the internet, so I went to the books. They've got the internet.
Right.
You know?
Well, I totally agree with you. And obviously this answer is meant to be a little more shocking to the older people than the younger people, right? Because obviously there's tons of great stuff all over the internet. And like you're saying, if you're searching Google, people don't think you're messing around, even though you totally could be. But I think it's more so with YouTube, right? There is a lot of different types of content on there. And so what video are you watching? It could be anything, right? But I think one of the reason I wanted to make that point and the surprise that I got out of saying that in front of those people was because I wanted people to think differently about the way we learn. What's really interesting to me is that when you see somebody on their phone, they actually might be working, right? They're not just messing around on social media. You can use that thing for anything. It is a computer in your pocket. So it's the same thing for YouTube. You can be learning how to do computational design. Instead of going to school at night to do that, you can do it anytime you want. And so I think that what was shocking to me, to finally get to the point, was there was actually a round of applause for that answer.
Right.
And I was not expecting that at all. And it was, I think, pretty much evenly distributed throughout the room. So I wasn't expecting that, but I was really happy to hear that response back, because it makes me think that things are changing in the workplace when it comes to people having resources available at their fingertips all the time and not feeling like they have to sneak it in, they have to look over their shoulder, but that they're actually responsible people using a great resource to learn new things all the time. And so it was interesting how that all went down. So I thought that was probably my favorite part of the whole day.
I agree. I agree. And I loved it. I loved the reaction. I loved the head nodding. I loved, people were like, oh yeah. I mean, and honestly, like I said, it took me a while to come around to that feeling, but I totally agree. A good example is we got a kid on our team who, this is his first job. He took a year off from school, and a lot of times we've been using him more for productivity. So he's been kind of stuck in SketchUp land for, quite a while. So he's getting into learning Revit, and we don't have necessarily the time, especially on this current project, to sit down and give him he's got to basically crash course himself. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about it is that he's online and he's watching tutorial videos on how to do this or how to do that. We're asking him, to do things like, hey, you need to do a section box or something like that, or whatever we were asking him to do. And he didn't know how to do it, and we didn't really have the time to sit down because we were kind of in a crunch mode today. And he didn't really, he maybe lost a little bit of time, just of productivity time. I'm using big air quotes there, but he learned what he needed to learn. He did what he needed to do. We still made the deadline that we were shooting for by, close of business. And he now knows how to do what we were asking him to do. And that's great. And so, as much as I would say YouTube is a great productivity tool, I'll give this shout out to a couple of people that I seen in our office. CNN is not. If you're reading political articles and all that other stuff in the middle of the day when you should be doing other work, you should probably do that other work. Oh, did I say that out loud?
All streaming video is not equal.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So overall, I think we all felt pretty good about it. And then as soon as it was over, Neil jumped back on a plane.
Yeah,
You were gone.
Literally.
You landed, you were there, and then you left.
Yeah, I had a planning commission meeting the night before, so I couldn't fly down the night before, and I had the Citizens Police Academy class at 6 o'clock that evening. So
Had to get
I
back.
literally left that morning, and I had to leave almost not even barely a half an hour after our talk.
you got
and,
you got
catch-
there about a half an hour before the talk. Maybe
about
an hour,
45
yeah.
minutes. It was 45 minutes before.
Okay.
Yeah. And I left about a half an hour after
Right.
our
It
talk.
was-
Maybe about 45 minutes after, too. But yeah, so I did. I literally flew back. I flew back into Oakland at 4:30 in the afternoon. I got home about 5:30, and less than a half an hour later, I made my class. So
All right.
it all worked out.
Well, then there you
I
I
go.
think your
Amazing,
commute was
right?
about the same length as mine because I sat in traffic both ways.
Yeah, and I flew basically from Northern California to Southern California. So
Yeah.
That
but
must
yeah,
have been hard
that
for
all
you.
went. Yeah, I didn't have to fly across the country like Fort Cormac
You
did.
didn't even leave your state.
I didn't. Well, I live in a big state.
Our state's
so-
Although I
pretty
will
big.
say this. So the day before, I got there early, obviously, because I couldn't fly in the day of.
Unless you
Right.
did a red eye or something.
No, I mean, there was
Even that would
literally no flights that would have got me there on time leaving, because they just don't leave early enough for me to get there on time. So
Okay.
I came in the day before, and as a podcaster, I listen to tons of podcasts, and one of the many podcasts that I listen to is a Kevin Smith one. So they were doing a live recording of one of his up in LA, and so I went up there, and what was great about it, I mean, I love how it's all made. They do both a video component and also the audio component, which is really all I listen to. I don't really watch the video. And it's great just to kind of see how they do it and how they run it, and almost everything's hidden, whereas like we sit in front of our computers with our microphone and we do it this way, which is probably how a lot of podcasters do it. And it was kind of great. I will say that it was kind of a cool environment. It was in the Scum and Villainy Cantina, which was a Star Wars themed one, which was all filled with my kind of, nerd mindseted people. And it was funny. It was like all of these people wearing these every different kind of like pop culture related graphic t-shirt, and of the whole crowd, I think my t-shirt of all of the t-shirts got the most, like, hey dude, you got a cool shirt, let me buy you a shot. Like, all right.
And you had your
Oh,
G-Force
no
t-shirt
kidding?
on? Or was
I had
that
my
something different?
I had my Battle of the Planets
Sweet.
G-Force t-shirt, and
Nice.
so going there, it was, because it was in a cantina, you had the 2-drink minimum, and I had 4 people buy me, just because of my t-shirt, I had 4 people buy me drinks. And so
Bonus.
I didn't even
Sweet.
have to pay for, my 2-drink minimum, because somebody else did. All
sweet,
because of my nerd graphic t-shirt.
Nice.
You got
You didn't tell us that.
You had a
No.
good bonus.
Well, you
part of the
left.
trip there.
You left early, so I couldn't tell you that. But I will say it was kind of cool. And so actually a week later, I wore the t-shirt at work today, and like 2 people in the office didn't buy me a drink, but they were just like, is that really a G-Force t-shirt?
Can I go get you a coffee?
Yeah. Like, no, don't drink coffee anymore.
Oh, that's right.
But
Can I refill your water, sir?
exactly. No, but it was really good. But yeah, no, it was great. And I really had fun, just like I said, watching how other people do it. I don't think that it's anything that we can use in our particular podcast, because it's 2 completely different ones. They're talking about kind of pop culture and, movie genres and stuff like that. And that specific one was talking about the very cool Castle Rock TV show that's on, which I give full endorsement of you guys watching if you're Stephen King fans. But but it was really just kind of cool to like see the whole thing. Plus it was weird. And I know, Neil, you listen to the show too, but that cantina, not very big, doesn't fit a lot of people in it. And it's really, I mean, it's very, wow. You'd be surprised. Like, again, since you listen to it, I don't know if anybody else out there listens to it, but you'd be surprised at how small that place really is.
So did they post the episode yet?
Yeah. They did. So
Posted right away.
Yeah, they usually post it. But, well, it was probably a couple of days because they had to do the audio edit and stuff. But it was, so what was really kind of cool is, so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, we try to be in a mostly quiet rooms where we're recording. They're in a live bar. They've literally got the bartender standing right behind them, shaking like, a cold mixed drink right behind them. You hear the ice clattering in the background, and I listen to the audio version of it, again, obviously, and I'm listening to it, and now I'm seeing everything that's going on. I didn't even have to look at the video because I was there, but like if you hear like all these little, like somebody would yell out something, and Mark Bernard and the guy on the show, he was like, he kind of got sidetracked and answered them, and you can hear it on there, but you really can't hear their audio, but I know what the question was, and he kind of repeated it. Right. You can hear all of the drinks being made in the background. The only thing that you can't hear on there is because of the way that it's situated, the front, to get to the bar, the front door is, you have to walk past the people who are recording the podcast to get to the bar. Oh. It is just, it's
a little different of an environment.
Yeah, I was like, what was surprising, I was like, how they just kept rolling. They didn't even, it didn't even bother them.
Nothing phases them. Yeah.
No, they were just like total professionals. They just kept on, kept on keeping on, or kept on keeping on, or however you want to say that.
I like that. You should make that into a t-shirt.
Kept on keeping on. There you go.
All right, cool. Well, you guys, let's get to business here. We got 2 questions this week from a listener and from a listener's father who is a listener. So it's like,
whoa,
a little complicated there. But anyway, they were rather long emails, so I cut out the question parts and posted those for you guys to read. But let's jump on one of these first. So the first one is from Paul Krabath, and his son is a 5th-year architecture student in Syracuse. And so his main question, he kind of gave a little synopsis history of what his son's been up to, travel abroad, working for professors in various small firms. But his first question, he had two questions. The first one was that he sees is because he listens to our show, and he's asking, and I think we can probably answer this, is do you really need working for a larger firm on your resume? Because eventually he wants to teach.
No.
And so he's saying, does he need to work for a 3-letter firm? He wants to teach at some point, but he wants to work for a while first to get some real world experience and get some money and go to grad school, maybe. So I don't know. Does anybody want to jump off with that one? And
I would honestly say that the explanation that he gave of what his son's been doing, working, he is getting real world experience. And to be quite honest with you, if he were sitting in an interview with me, he would be a top candidate because he's got real life experience that enriches. And you talk about this all the time about how the outside of the firm activities enrich what you do and bring to the table in the firm. Mm-hmm. And the travel is a fantastic plus. I mean, yeah, he's worked with his professors and things like that, and so did I when I was coming out of school. So I mean, that's experience, and that's valuable because you actually understand deadlines, or you hopefully you're learning deadlines from your professors, or learning how to draft, or learning a few things here and there that are going to be valuable to you that people who don't have office experience which, may or may not get hired, you already have that leg up on them. So even if it's a smaller firm, if ultimately you want to go and you want to teach, I don't think that coming straight out of school with the experience that he has right now is going to be a hindrance. It is only going to be a help. That's my thought on it.
What do you got, Neil?
I would say it sort of depends on the kind of work you want to do when you're done. Now, I get that there's a note there, hey, I want to, you may want to teach someday, but let's ignore that for a moment and just say, what kind of work do you want to do? And then go find the firms that do that work, right? I didn't have a big interest myself, so so here's my bias side of this, is that I didn't have an opportunity or didn't have a big desire to go do the type of work that, say, a 3-letter firm would do, right? And so did I need that to get a job? No. And I would say you don't have to have that. It depends on the type of work you want to do. And go find the firms that do that work and then go try and work for them, right? And but if you're getting some real world experience now, then that, as Cormac said, that's going to be your leg up. That's what helped me. I mean, I got lucky enough to land a job very early on, just as a drafter for a one-person firm, but that gave me real world experience that when I went to the next job, I could already do something, and I didn't have to get totally taught how to hold a pencil and be responsible. So I would say any sort of experience would be good, but at the end of the day, go search out the firms that are doing the kind of work you want to do. And if they happen to be 3-letter firms, then go work for those. Yeah.
I will say something interesting that I didn't really think of. There are a lot of 3-letter firms out there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. 3 and 4. Yes.
Two of us work for one.
Yeah.
For two.
One of the gentlemen I mentioned who I first started working for, he always said the firm, if he was going to name a firm like three letters, it would be GHI. Gotta have initials.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different tact and say that you should get experience at all different sizes of firms to figure out what you really like, because there is something that sets these larger firms apart. And 2 things that immediately come to mind are resources and opportunity to do lots of different kinds of work. And then I would say thirdly, it is leadership opportunities, because you are going to be working on teams, whereas in small firms, that's less of a thing, right? Medium and large firms, you're definitely working on teams, and sometimes quite large teams, which gives you good opportunities to see how people work together. And, those are the projects people hate in school. But in reality, that is every single project that we do. And you really have to learn how to do that.
Real quick, though, let me ask you this, because to go to Dad's point here, does he need that experience? I totally agree with you that going in, experiencing all of the, different size firms to really see what fits and so you can settle into your career is totally a valuable tool and totally, excellent advice. But does he need it before he graduates?
No, but he needs it to become a professor.
Okay.
And the reason why I think mostly comes down to, so we all know there's lots of professors out there who have never practiced. And I think that is kind of a tragedy, right? For most people going through school. And
never had any of those.
And so when you're practicing, like, that happens at all different scales, right? It happens at small, medium, and large. And because when you are leading people through an education of architecture, I think that leadership is important. And we've all also had professors who were not leaders, right? We've had professors who yell at people. That's not leadership. No. We've had professors who tear people down. That's not leadership. And so there have been professors that have been good mentors, and I bet you the mentors were either have a ton of experience, or they worked in large firms on teams of people where it gives you the opportunity to get into a niche, a groove, expertise. Whereas when you're working for smaller firms, you kind of have to do it all. And I think those are both equally great experiences. And I think they're also equally necessary for teaching lots of different types of scenarios to students in school.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from with that. So, I mean, I think we've kind of given them a lot to chew on with that one. I don't know that we need to go further with that part, but we could go to the second part of the question. What do you got, Neil?
What was the second part again?
No, okay. So the second part of the question was that his girlfriend is in the same program, equally talented,
okay.
And has worked for larger firms. But how easy or difficult is it for two people to get jobs in architecture in the same city? And then what are the best cities for architectural firms? Man, I don't know that there's a wrong answer for that right now.
That's so.
It depends on the economy.
Yeah, not a problem right now.
I'd say almost everywhere in every major market that offers basically the small, medium, large, and extra large firms.
Yeah.
Are hurting for people in real. I mean, it is a good market for people coming out of school. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the case when. I know, Neil, I mean, didn't you come out during a recession?
Yeah. Sure did.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a good time. I mean, people are hiring and, projects are moving forward. I mean, who knows? I mean...
You're not sure how long this is going to last, but right now,
but
you're
now
not wrong, Carmen.
Yeah.
Anywhere, any major metropolitan area right now is a good place.
Yeah. So
I would say, again, go back... Look for the firms that are doing the type of work you want to do. Where are those firms located?
Yeah.
And if it's a place agreeable to you, go move there.
Yeah, and they mentioned
right?
And they mentioned there was a keyword in there, progressive companies, and honestly, right. I most certainly believe that they are everywhere. Smaller markets like where I came from in St. Petersburg, Florida. I mean, there's a bunch of tons of great firms doing great work there. And then you get to where I'm at now in the Baltimore and, Washington, D.C. area, and there's tons of firms. You can't shake a stick without hitting an architecture firm somewhere. And it's a variety of different ones. I mean, from like the boutique residential firms all the way up to the megapolis crazy large firms and stuff. And then the middle ground ones like mine, and we're I mean, everybody's looking for people, and everybody's doing really good work, and so you can, and I'm just going to say that this is probably the case everywhere, is you will be able to pick and choose what type of firms that you go to. I will just throw this little bit of advice out there, dad to dad. Please let him know. Let both him and his girlfriend know hard work is what's really going to make him stand out from everybody else.
Yep.
It really is. I mean, we've got some interesting people in our firm that work differently. They all work great, and they're all, but they work differently. And some people take a lot of prodding to get moving, and some people just are go-getters and will take a hold of something, take the ownership in a project and run with it.
Yep.
And those are the ones that you're going to be, holy crap, this is the guy that I want teaching me in the future.
Yeah. I'll say this. The staff person who does exactly what Cormac just said, takes that initiative and does a good job. Look, we're busy. I'm busy. I'm very busy.
I don't know what day it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so if I have somebody working for me that proves through several examples, or like, hey, can you take care of this? Oh, I've already done it. Or yeah, I'll take care of that. And not only did I take care of it, but I followed up, and here's this answer, and now we've got, here's now the question, right? It's like, whoa, if that person shows me that, I don't care how long they've been working, that's my go-to person after that, right? It's like, oh, I can trust this person. And I think we've talked a little bit about this in some past episodes, but the person that will do that is the person that excels, that does well. And right now, anybody can get a job in our profession. Everybody's very busy. That won't last forever. Trust us. This economy cycles.
Right.
Yeah, but if you're one of those people that you guys are talking about, you'll be one of those people who has a way higher chance of keeping your job.
Bingo. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was headed.
Indispensable.
Heaven.
You want to be indispensable.
So, yeah. Or make yourself as indispensable as possible. It doesn't always save you, but it'll, trust me, you'll get a positive, there will be positive words, so that when there's a job opening, or if somebody calls and like, hey, I need somebody, because this is a very close-knit network of firms that do similar types of work, and we all know each other, and it's like, hey, this person's really good, you should give them a call. Or the opposite happens, is this person's really good and we're going to steal them somehow, right, and add, give them a boatload more money. And that's happening now too.
Yeah.
So
highly employable people have lots of options, right?
Exactly.
I'll just end with a couple of just stories of people that I know who have gone to firms like the ones you're talking about. And so like in Portland, I know some people who've gone to Allied Works or ZGF or Bora. I have a friend who went to SOM downtown LA. And particularly with my friend who went to SOM downtown, it was a very small office at that point. Their headquarters are in San Francisco, and they were restarting an LA office. So he got in there. I think there were less than 30 people, maybe even less than 20 people. And now it's quite larger than that because the economy. And he's having the time of his life. He loves it. And I think what I would draw from that is that large firms are some people's absolute joy. And so you won't know that unless you try it, because you might find out that it is, and you also might find out that it isn't. And I would just encourage people to try lots of different things early in their career, because if you figure, both of those are valuable things, figuring out what you like and figuring out what you don't like. So I totally recommend this thing. Yes, large firms are a thing in architecture for sure. There's crazy resources to do equipment and software and hardware, and you can really do things that you can never do in smaller firms. And then in the smaller firms, you get tons of varied experience. And, either way, I think they're both equally great paths to a career in architecture. So good with that one, guys?
Yeah.
All right. So here's the next question, and we'll finish off with this one, and we'll try to do it kind of quick. Is we have an anonymous with an email if anybody wants to contact this person later. So it's not a person's name email. So we'll put the email here in our show notes if you guys are interested in responding to this person as well. But and where can you find those show notes? You can find them at archispeakpodcast.com, and just click on the episode, and you can see all the notes for this episode. But the question is, we have somebody who is looking for guidance as they begin a search for a brave architecture firm that would appreciate what they have to offer and wants to gain a competitive advantage. So again, there's a lot of backstory here, so we'll kind of jump into the main part of the question, kind of knowing the backstory, and hopefully we'll fill in the listeners through the conversation here. But the question is specifically, how should I actually demonstrate to a firm that my skills can add value? So where are they coming from with this kind of a question? They're coming from a place of, I'm not late in my career. I'm scanning back and trying to find but basically trained as an architect, not licensed, bulk of new experience in real estate development and investment, currently for 5 years, worked in acquisitions group, publicly traded company where two core responsibilities are managing contract due diligence and analyzing feasibility of joint venture investment opportunities. So there's a lot of, this is kind of slightly related to architectural field, definitely the industry, but not specifically architecture. And so this person is feeling stuck where they are, and they really want to get into architecture, right? So So this person is totally, it sounds like a self-starter. They know lots of technology, but at the same time, they see kind of their age and their experience as a disadvantage. So how do you guys think that this person could demonstrate to a firm that their skills could add value without specific design or construction experience? So we just finished talking about how there's tons of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
So is there opportunity for somebody like this?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's with this person's going to need a little bit more research in the kind of firm that they want to go to, because they got a lot of great experience and a lot of management experience. And it's going to really be hard in a way to have the management skill. So they've had the management skills developed, but learning the architecture that goes behind managing, an architectural project is different from other, management skills and or management projects and things like that for different careers, but not really. I mean, if you've got the leadership skills, you've got the leadership skills, and that'll come up really quickly. So, but I think finding a firm, especially firms that are like a design build type firm or a developer architect type firm, that you have those skills that they would be looking for, the business development, the money management, and all of these other things that would be able to help you out. That all of those skills you have are skills that people don't have in architecture and need. And so there's going to be a lot of cross mentoring between them developing your architectural skills and you developing their business acumen.
I think this is kind of a dangerous path too, that you'll just have to walk and tread lightly, because you don't want to go work for one of those firms, it sounds to me, and do that kind of work. They want to do architecture. And so as soon as you show all your cards, you would probably, like you're saying, Cormac, they would be seen as a very valuable asset in that side of the business, but that doesn't sound like that's the side of the business they want to be, that they want to pursue. So here's the important thing, I think, and you also mentioned it, Cormac, is leadership skills. I mean, when we talk about where the biggest gap in large firms are right now, as far as talent, what is it? It's the people like the senior project managers and the project architects and the senior project architects. There's not enough of those people. Now, I'm not saying that's what this guy is, but those are typically seen as the leaders in the studios, right? And what the most important skill there, I think, is leadership, especially when you are showing that you can pick up these tools and learn them rather quickly. That's great, because you can lead people too, and you can enable them because you see the importance in the tools. I think the hardest part of moving into a position like this that we're talking about is your marketability on projects, right? Because typically in our world, when you go after a project, you need to have prior experience that's recent in those types of projects to be put on a pursuit to go after those. Because if you don't have the experience, you just can't be named on the pursuit, and then you don't actually get to participate in those, which makes it like this impossible problem to solve. The only way to solve it is, it is. So you have to have experience to get more, and it's very difficult to even break out of a market, even though I think we've talked about it many times. Architecture is architecture. You can design a hospital, you can design a school building. I mean, it's a building still, and you apply the same techniques and challenges, but there are lots of people out there who think you can't do it if you don't have that experience, that specific experience. I also think that one of the benefits that our question asker has is that they do have software experience. So he talked about Dynamo, he talked about SketchUp, he talked about Rhino, and so I would assume, I guess, that Revit is probably in that tool bag as well. The importance of being able to self-perform work is very high, and I'm not quite sure why that is, but I think it has to do with that there's just not enough people in these positions to go around. So self-performers are definitely highly valued. If you're just somebody who used to draw by hand and that's what you have to offer a team, it's going to be very difficult to fit into the modern way that we do work, right? Which is all model-based stuff. And that's how we communicate almost everything now, especially with VR and AR and all these other technologies that are coming in where people are basically living in 3D all the time. If you can self-perform, if you can do the design, the modeling, and the presentation of it, and you can be self-sufficient or at least be very closely linked with some other people who might be able to support you doing that, then I think you're going to have a really good chance as well.
Totally agree.
So do you guys have
well said.
Do you have like one kind of wrap up thing for our question asker here about how a firm might have a positive reaction to their skill set or their desire? I mean, passion, I think, is huge.
Passion will be huge. And
interviews are free, right? Like you get to go out and interview and just look at those as opportunities to learn and don't even go in with expectations. Have a good time, show passion, and see what happens. Because luckily you don't have to pay for interviews, right? You can go in and start interviewing for this stuff and get that experience and see what happens. I mean, it's you'll never know.
Money making opportunity there.
Really,
make people pay. Us architects, we need to make more money.
I think that the future's bright for somebody like this. I don't think that these are really knocks on this person at all. I mean, and especially
I would say get in now, though. Get in as soon as possible, because in 2 years or 18 months or 12 months or something, it's
going to be rolling the dice at that point.
And then you're going to struggle.
And
because
also
somebody with that level of experience is not going to come cheap. And so you've got to get your foot in the door soon, somewhere, and begin to establish yourself.
I will say this. So there's probably going to be a little bit of a level of frustration that you're going to have when you're going to go to these firms, because you've already identified that it's going to be hard for you to sell them on your value, but you do have value that you're going to be bringing them. And so there's going to be a little bit of a challenge, and maybe some firms aren't going to understand, what you can bring to the table. Well, those aren't really the firms that you probably want to work with. So, as Evan said, keep going to interviews. I'm going to say this, it's October, mid-October right now, or early to mid-October right now. And firms, a lot of firms don't like hiring around the end of the year. Just anybody and everybody who's listening to this that is looking for, going to be looking for a job. The only reason why is because they're trying to close up their books. They're trying to do things, administratively, that they really aren't thinking about bringing on new hires until the beginning of the year. So if you're out there looking and you can't find anything, or people are like, well, maybe come back at the beginning of the year, it's not you. It really isn't you. It's that businesses are thinking about other things, a lot of other things. It's it's closing the books up. So don't get frustrated with that, and just keep persevering through it, because there are firms out there that need, talent that they may not be looking for. And it's like, oh, okay, well, you don't really have a lot of architectural experience, then sell them on everything else, because
don't focus on the negative.
Yeah, totally don't. I mean, because
so there's
I would add one thing is, I don't know how much time or effort has gone into looking at what architects make. I made a flippant remark about making money earlier, but money making opportunity. But in all realities, I don't know what this person with this type of experience has made in the past, but be prepared, because you may not have exactly what that firm needs or is looking for, but they recognize that there's a lot of potential there, but be prepared to possibly be offered less than what you think you're worth, or maybe what you have made in the past.
And that's, and that's
a different
landscape
landscape than other professions.
It is.
Yeah. But what you could do, though, is offer, if you get something that is reasonable but lower than maybe what you want, what you can do is negotiate in performance and salary review, say after 6 months or something like that, so that after 6 months, if they see, wow, okay, this is really working out, or this guy male or female, just hit a home run in their first 6 months, and now, wow, we can see that value, then you have the opportunity to be offered more money and make up for maybe starting a little lower than you would have liked to.
And understand where some of the value that you really have and are going to be bringing to them is architects. Well, I would say notoriously bad business people. And it's not any fault of theirs. We have focus on problem solving. We have focus on design. We have focus on construction aspects of things. And a lot of times we aren't really taught how to be good business people. And that's where somebody like you, who has a business degree, a architecture degree, but also has a lot of business experience, can come in and show them how to basically be that, go out and get new business and how to keep business and how to, do things, how to reach out and branch out to things that they may not think about. So I really like Neil's idea about, negotiating performance, performance bonuses or performance raise, opportunities and things like that, because 6 months is probably all it's going to take for you to, get your bearings on the architecture side of things, with the experience that you have, and that just really going after the things that, and you'll be able to assess what the firm that you end up working for doesn't have, and where you can fit into bettering that firm.
Yeah,
and
find the holes, right?
Exactly.
I think that's a great strategy, is to find out, and I think there's a lot of firms out there who paint a picture that they've got it all figured out, right? Their social network, their social media is patting themselves on the back all the time, and everything's great. But if you can get to know people and find out what are the struggles, and then try to figure out how you could solve problems for people, that's a great strategy to go in and find the holes and plug them up. And I would just say, as my last remark on this, is just be confident. Go in there, and what I mean by that is, don't go in there like you've got all the answers. Go in there being confident that you've got a lot to learn and that you're willing to do it. And I think that is a huge difference when you can show that you're willing to do whatever it takes, and then renegotiate later, or maybe somebody sees the value in that right away. I think that is a huge win for firms, because they want people that are willing to figure things out, to solve their problems, and not go in there acting like they already know it all. So I think that you've got a ton of opportunity out there. And like I said, interviews are free, so start doing them now and see what happens. Because it sounds, based on what Cormac said and in my feelings too, I think time is of the essence here. This is not something that you can wait for a year to start doing.
Yep. I agree.
So I know for sure in our firm, we've got more job openings right now than I think I've ever seen. So there's lots of need.
Yeah.
So just see if you can
absolutely.
match something. Yeah. All right. So I think that's it for Ask Archispeak this episode. Great questions. I really appreciate the listeners. And if you guys, our listeners out there, have advice, like I said, the email address for that last question there will be in our show notes, and you can email them if you'd like and add your own to it. And I think they would really appreciate that.
So, hey, I want to remind everyone that this episode is brought to you by Arcat, and the music is by System Kid. Subscribe to Archispeak on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or listen directly from our site at archispeakpodcast.com. You can follow the show on social media and keep sending in those questions via Twitter or Facebook. Links to each of those can be found on the site. Thanks for listening, everyone, and stay subscribed. We'll catch you next time.
See you next time.
Have a good one.